Does objective reality exist, or is the structure of everything, including space and time, created by the perceptions of those observing it? This is a question that even scientists and philosophers wrestle with. We, the tiny creatures living in a world that seems to follow clear rules and order, may wonder, are everything we see, hear, and feel part of objective reality, or are they simply versions created by our own minds? If you think the world around you exists independently, you might need to rethink that. This universe may not be as real as you think. Some modern theories, particularly in the field of quantum physics, suggest that everything we know about reality could be merely a structure created by subjective perceptions. This not only changes the way we understand the world, but also raises the question: if there were no observers, would the universe exist? In this video, we will explore fascinating questions about reality, the existence of the universe, and how the human brain might be creating a world we call real. Join me as we dive deep into the theory of a non-real universe, where space, time, and everything around us could just be products of perceptions and imagination. Don't miss out, because we're about to venture into the deepest corners of the universe, where everything, perhaps, is just an illusion. How does the world around us work, and what is real? These questions are not only central to scientific and philosophical discourse, but have been circulating since the dawn of human consciousness. Is there a physical reality that is independent of us? Does objective reality exist at all, or is the structure of everything, including space and time, created by the perceptions of those observing it? When we think about reality, we often assume that what we see, hear, and experience is an accurate reflection of the world around us. However, two different fields of study, neuroscience and philosophy, offer different perspectives on the nature of reality and how we perceive it. Neuroscience tells us that our brain creates our reality. It takes an input from our senses and creates a model of the world we experience. This model is what we call reality. Our brains use this model to make predictions about what will happen next based on past experiences and sensory input. But how accurate is this model of reality? Is it possible that our brains are creating a distorted version of the world around us? Research suggests that our perceptions are not always reliable and that our brains can be easily tricked. Optical illusions, for example, demonstrate how our brains can be deceived by simple visual stimuli. I'll show you later in the video. On the other hand, philosophy tells us that reality is something that exists independent of our minds. It exists outside our brains and can be known through reason and observation. According to this view, reality is objective and exists whether or not we are there to perceive it. However, this raises the question of how we can know anything about reality if we rely on our senses to perceive the world, and our senses are fallible. How can we be sure that what we perceive is accurate? This is a central problem in philosophy, known as the problem of knowledge. One possible resolution to this problem is to rely on reason and logic to understand reality. By using reason and observation, we can arrive at conclusions about the nature of reality that are not dependent on our subjective perceptions. But even this approach is not foolproof. Our reasoning abilities can be flawed, and our observations can be influenced by our preconceptions and biases. So where does this leave us in our understanding of reality? It seems that neither neuroscience nor philosophy offers a complete picture of how we perceive the world around us. The truth may lie somewhere in between, a combination of our sensory input, cognitive processes, and reasoning abilities. This business about the distinction between things in themselves and things as they appear has troubled philosophers for years. But what does it have to do with modern physics, specifically the story of quantum theory? In fact, such questions have dogged the theory almost from the moment of its inception in the 1920s. Ever since it was discovered that atomic and subatomic particles exhibit both localized particle-like properties and delocalized wave-like properties, physicists have become raveled in a debate about what we can and can't know about the true nature of physical reality. Parmenides, one of the greatest of the pre-Socratic thinkers, talked about the nature of reality in which he argued that the world we see is an illusion. The real nature of the world is unavailable to our senses, but accessible to us through reason. Furthermore, this real world is unchanging, unified, and timeless. Parmenides' argument began with the idea that we cannot have a rational concept of nothingness, since nothingness can't exist. He held that there was no empty space, and without empty space to move into, he maintained that motion was impossible. He continued in this way until he refuted the ideas of change, difference, and ending. He then turned to the world we interact with, explaining it as mere appearances. His proposition that our senses are useless when looking for truth has proven enduring, that physical reality is not real. But what does that mean for us? Quantum mechanics was born out of the intense quest for a description of the infinitesimal to find smaller and smaller measurements of physical reality. It was Niels Bohr who eventually perfected the theory when he described the atom as consisting of a positively charged atomic nucleus with negatively charged electrons orbiting around it like a mini solar system. Things became completely baffling when the world that had always been hidden from us, the world of the infinitesimal, gradually began to reveal itself. The microscopic world proved to be fundamentally different from the world as it was normally perceived and described by physical laws. This world obeyed different laws, and nothing was certain anymore. However, all the calculations of quantum mechanics are so amazingly accurate that there must be a reality behind it, but one that is hidden from our direct perception. At the heart of this inquiry lies the concept of reductionism, the idea that complex phenomena can be reduced to their fundamental components. In the case of the cosmos, this involves identifying the smallest, most basic units of matter and energy that make up everything we observe. In chemistry, we learned the smallest amount of water is a water molecule, and any container of water consists of a staggering number of identical water molecules. Modern physics tells us that these building blocks come in the form of subatomic particles such as electrons, quarks, and neutrinos. These particles are believed to be the fundamental constituents of matter, and all the matter we see around us is made up of various combinations of these particles. But the story doesn't end there. The fundamental building blocks of the cosmos go beyond just particles, extending to the very fabric of space and time itself. According to Einstein's theory of general relativity, space and time are not separate entities, but rather intertwined, forming a unified four-dimensional fabric known as space-time. In this framework, the universe is not just made up of particles moving through space, but rather a dynamic interplay between matter and the curvature of space-time itself. This leads to phenomena such as gravity, which is the result of the warping of space-time by massive objects. But over the years, scientists have come up with different thoughts about what is the actual building block of the cosmos. The most popular one that gained attraction is information, where reality is made of information. At first glance, this may seem like an abstract concept, but recent advancements in the field of information theory have shown that information is a fundamental part of the universe. Information can be defined as a measure of the uncertainty in a system. In other words, it tells us how much we don't know about a particular system. This can include everything from the position and momentum of particles to the properties of black holes. In the framework of quantum mechanics, information plays a central role. The famous observer effect tells us that the act of measuring a quantum system can fundamentally alter its state. This implies that the act of measurement, or the acquisition of information, is an integral part of the quantum world. Moreover, recent theories such as the holographic principle suggest that information may be the very fabric of space-time itself. This idea posits that the information in a three-dimensional space can be encoded onto a two-dimensional surface, much like a hologram. This implies that the universe may be fundamentally holographic, with information serving as the basic building blocks of reality. It's because information occurs at the macro level and also occurs at the subatomic level. Some scientists now argue that information is the only candidate for such a building block that can explain its own existence, as information generates additional information that needs to be compressed, thus generating more information in the process. Space-time and matter are all the same. They exist one by one out of the same building blocks. Information is located not only on the surface, bounding a specific space, but within the space itself as well, giving rise to the fact that entangled quantum information is not only responsible for the emergence of space-time, but also leads directly to the arising of ordinary matter, dark matter, and dark energy. Moreover, recent advancements in quantum computing have shown that information can be encoded in the state of individual particles, which can then be manipulated to perform complex calculations. This suggests that the universe is a kind of quantum computer, with each particle acting as a bit of information that can be processed to generate new information. Fix your eyes on the black dot on the left side of this image. While looking at the black dot, try to monitor the object moving on the right side of the image too. Try to answer this question. In what direction is the object on the right moving? Is it drifting diagonally, or is it moving up and down? Remember, focus on the black dot on the left. It appears as though the object on the right is moving diagonally up to the right and then back down to the left. Actually, it's not. It's moving up and down in a straight vertical line. Trace it with your finger to verify. This is a visual illusion. The alternating black and white patch inside the object suggests diagonal motion and confuses our senses. Like all misperceptions, it teaches us that our experience of reality is not perfect. But this particular illusion has recently reinforced scientists' understanding of the nature of our consciousness. It's really important to understand that we're not seeing reality. We're seeing a story that's being created for us. Most of the time, the story our brains generate matches the real physical world, but not always. Our brains also unconsciously bend our perception of reality to meet our desires or expectations and fill in the gaps using our past experiences. If the universe produced brains, why can't the universe itself be a giant superbrain? Everything that we call real is composed of measurements so tiny that it would be difficult to call them real in themselves. Our senses are merely biochemical measuring instruments that turn imperceptible matter into perceptible things that we can know and understand. They don't reveal reality to us so much as help us survive. The real information emitted from the universe is interpreted in the brain rather than directly perceived. The brain holds a mask in front of reality, a mask that we can understand. Meanwhile, the real world of information lies concealed. One of the more unsettling discoveries in the past is that the universe is not locally real. In this context, real means that objects have definite properties independent of observation. For example, an apple can be read even when no one is looking. Local means that objects can only be influenced by their surroundings, and any influence cannot travel faster than the speed of light. Investigations at the frontiers of quantum physics have found that these things cannot both be true. Instead, the evidence shows that objects are not influenced solely by their surroundings and may also lack definite properties prior to measurement. Three theoretical physicists, John Clauser, Anton Zeilinger, and Alain Aspect, were jointly awarded the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics for a 1972 experiment and many subsequent experiments showing that the local realism view of the universe is likely to be false. Their work made clear what quantum mechanics really means. The scientists' findings show that the universe cannot be locally real, as particles lack definite spin-up or spin-down properties prior to their observation or measurement. Therefore, the simple act of observing a particle changes its state, contradicting the rules of local realism. In other words, the universe is real, but only when you're looking at it. The Nobel Prize-winning experiment also demonstrated that two particles, regardless of how far apart they are, can remain entangled in the quantum realm. This contradicts local realism and Einstein's theory of relativity because, according to their assumptions, influences cannot travel faster than the speed of light. In theory, two particles could be at opposite ends of the observable universe and continue to be entangled, a concept known as non-locality. Likewise, the universe cannot be local, yet quantum physics proves long-distance interactions are possible. That being said, we still don't know which of those properties is actually false, or even if both are. All we know is they can't simultaneously be true. Our consciousness filters and interprets sensory information based on our past experiences, biases, and beliefs. Thus, reality can be seen as a subjective construct created by our individual consciousness. The origin of the modern concept of consciousness is often attributed to Locke's essay concerning human understanding, published in 1690. Locke defined consciousness as the perception of what passes in a man's own mind. Locke's definition of consciousness implies that it is a kind of internal observer that allows us to perceive and reflect on our own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. However, this raises the question of how consciousness arises in the first place. What gives rise to this internal observer, and how does it relate to the physical processes of the brain? William James is usually credited with popularizing the idea that human consciousness flows like a stream in his Principles of Psychology of 1890. According to James, the stream of thought is governed by 5 characteristics. Every thought tends to be part of a personal consciousness. Within each personal consciousness, thought is always changing. Within each personal consciousness, thought is sensibly continuous. It always appears to deal with objects independent of itself, and it is interested in some parts of these objects to the exclusion of others. James believed that consciousness was not just a collection of isolated mental events, but rather a dynamic process that is constantly in flux. He used the metaphor of a stream to describe the continuous flow of consciousness, with each momentary experience being a part of the overall current of consciousness. According to James, consciousness is not just a passive observer of the world, but an active participant in shaping our experience. He believed that we have a stream of thought that carries us through the day, with our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions continually interacting with one another. One theory that has gained traction in recent years is the idea that consciousness arises from the integrated information processing that occurs in the brain. According to this theory, consciousness is not something that emerges from specific brain regions, but is instead an emergent property of the brain as a whole. In other words, consciousness arises from the complex interactions between the billions of neurons in the brain, with each neuron acting as a bit of information that contributes to the overall pattern of activity. However, this theory still fails to explain whether all organisms possess consciousness or not. For example, do humans and certain other animals possess consciousness, while bacteria and plants do not? Postulates, theories, and laws can account for the emergence of consciousness, leaving us with a perplexing mystery that defies our basic understanding of the natural world. Natural laws, which govern the behavior of particles and the movement of energy, do not seem to call for the existence of consciousness, and it certainly does not seem to offer us any evolutionary advantages. But why does consciousness exist? There can only be 2 possible explanations. The first is there are forces at work that we haven't arisen about yet. Forces that select the emergence of this enigmatic experience. Perhaps there are evolutionary pressures that favor the development of consciousness, or perhaps there are other as yet unknown factors at play. The second explanation is that consciousness is a product that we create, a function we serve as human beings. We are the generators of the experience, the creators of the qualia that make up our subjective experiences. But for whom do we create this product, and how do they receive it? These questions remain shrouded in mystery, leaving us with more questions than answers. So here we are, generating this product called consciousness that we apparently don't have a use for. That is an experience, and hence must serve as an experience. The only logical next step is to surmise that this product serves someone else, that everything we know and experience, including reality itself, is a simulation created by some unseen and unknowable entity. Which leads us to the next chapter in this video. What would happen if the reality, including the world we live in, is just a simulation? According to Nick Bostrom, who strongly supports this theory, if we are living in a simulation, then the cosmos that we are observing is just a tiny piece of the totality of physical existence. Bostrom's seminal paper titled "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" explains that future generations might have mega-computers that can run numerous and detailed simulations for their forebears. The vast majority of minds like ours, Bostrom argues, would not belong to the original race, but rather to people simulated by the advanced descendants of that original race. It is then possible to argue that, if this were the case, we would be rational to think that we are likely among the simulated minds rather than among the original biological ones. Since then, the idea has gained traction in popular culture and the scientific community. Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX and Tesla, famously stated that the probability of us living in a base reality is 1 in billions. Physicist Neil deGrasse Tyson has also commented on the possibility, stating that the chance of our universe being a simulation is better than 50-50. But the biggest question still remains. If we live in a computer simulation, who is the original programmer? They may just be a teenager, according to Chalmers, hacking on a computer and running 5 universes in the background. But it might be someone who is, nonetheless, omniscient and all-powerful about our world. The simulation theory builds on an argument philosophers have been debating for centuries, that we can never know if what we're seeing is real. However, others argue that the simulation argument is flawed. They point out that there is no empirical evidence to support the idea that we are living in a simulation. Furthermore, they argue that even if we were living in a simulation, it would be impossible to prove, since the rules of the simulation would be all we know. But the question remains, do we live in a simulation? And if we do, what are the implications? If our reality is nothing more than a computer program, then what is the nature of our existence? Are we simply digital constructs with no true free will or agency, or are we something more? Can we ever know and perceive the real, limited information of the world, and not merely the illusory perceptions that the brain creates in order for us to have an awareness of our environment? As Carl Sagan put it, we are a way for the universe to know itself. From the very first moment humans had language, enabling them to think and imagine things, we began speculating on reality and our origin. Gradually, we became more successful at it. The ultimate goal of the game is to finally discover our origin and give it all meaning, including the universe and its emitted information. In the end, the question of whether we live in a simulation or not is one that is both captivating and mysterious. It challenges our understanding of the world and ourselves, and forces us to confront the limitations of our own knowledge and perception. While the simulation argument is a fascinating concept to ponder, it is important to remember that we must approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism and humility. As we continue to push the boundaries of technology and explore the frontiers of science, we may one day be able to answer the question definitively. But until then, we must remain open to the possibilities of the unknown and continue to seek out new insights and perspectives on the world around us. In the meantime, we should focus on embracing the reality that we can measure and observe, and resist the temptation to impose our own biases and preconceptions onto the world. Only by doing so can we hope to gain a deeper understanding of the universe and our place within it. So let us keep asking questions, keep exploring the mysteries of the world, and keep striving to uncover the truth, no matter where it may lead us. Carl Sagan once said, "We are a way for the universe to know itself." From the very first moment humans had language, allowing them to think and imagine, speculations and questions about reality and the origin of humanity were raised. In your opinion, how should the nature of reality be perceived? Feel free to share your perspective in the comments below the video. Thank you for watching. If you learned something from this video, please like, subscribe to the Top Hidden Knowledge channel for more content on wisdom, spirituality, and personal growth. Or if you have time, check out other videos on this channel. Until next time.